and welcome to the virtual version of Increasing Student Engagement and Mathematics Understanding via Technology. I am Dr. Perdue, and I'm going to be leading you through this virtual presentation. I really wish that we were together in real life, or at least on some kind of platform where we could engage. But at the end of this presentation, I will give you my contact information, and I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these ideas and how you're using educational technology in your classes. You can also go to my website, www.rimway.com, that I have listed here on the title slide, and you can contact me that way as well. So today, the agenda is pretty simple. I want to discuss ways that you can engage your students and thereby increase their content knowledge. And I want to talk about ways that technology can help you do that. I want to discuss 4 specific tools that you can use, which I think are probably the best set of tools, particularly for the beginning teacher using educational technology. So the tools that I've chosen are Twitter, VoiceThread, Poll Everywhere, and Screencast-O-Matic. But before we get too far into it, I would like for you to go ahead and take out your smartphone, and if you don't already have a QR code reader app, go ahead and download one. I've given you sort of the top 3 for the top 3 platforms, Droid, iPhone, and BlackBerry, listed here. So you can scan this QR code and get a free EdTech consultation. So after you hear this presentation, if you would like to know more, here's your chance. Go ahead and scan the QR code, give me the information, and we'll schedule your consultation after the fact. So let's talk about what student engagement looks like. I love to do this in a virtual setting where folks can, type into the chat box, or in real life where we can just have a little discussion about it. And unfortunately, doing this as a virtual presentation doesn't really allow that. But I'll just mention from when I've done this presentation in the past, some of the things that my participants and fellow teachers have come up with. And to me, this is one of those things where we all know what it looks like, even if we can't always define it so precisely. So here are a couple of things. Engage students. There's evidence that they're really thinking, they're focused, they're looking and listening and doing. They're on task. When they're really engaged, they're doing what you're asking them to do. They're talking, they're discussing, they're arguing, they're proving, they're justifying, they're explaining. And on top of all of those things, usually the truly engaged students are enjoying it. That's demonstrated by them laughing and being interested and being motivated. And it's really interesting. There's some fascinating research that was done where we asked teachers ways to engage students. And here's what some of the results were. Now remember, this is what the teachers think are ways to engage students. So they include things like giving students ownership, letting them choose their own experiences, making the method and the content relevant. We talk about that a lot, having it apply to the students' real life, and allowing the students to build relationships with each other and to work together, to collaborate. And probably the number one thing that teachers think is the way to engage students is to make it fun, to be enthusiastic and kind of do a song and dance number. Now, what to me is fascinating about this is that this is what the teachers think are ways to engage students, but we don't always go to the actual source and ask the students themselves. But a few people have, and here is what the students say are engaging to them. And you'll notice there are some overlaps, which is good. Those of us who are teachers, we think we know what the answers are. And in this case, we do have some of those components, but some of them we're missing. So notice what's on this list. Students say that they are engaged when they get to work with their peers, when they get to have choice, when they get to be active, when there's variety, when there are visuals, when they get to see connections to their own life, when their teacher shows interest and passion. That's something that engages students. And technology. And of course, that's what brings us to today's presentation. That's really what I want to talk about. I just wanted to do a little overview of, engaging behavior and characteristics and motivation. Okay, so let's talk about using technology, and let's talk about why I got into using technology, because usually that's a question that comes up with my participants, and when I talk with teachers, they're like, how did you get into this, Diana? So here's why I got into it. I had problems. That's really the short answer. I had problems. Here were some of my specific problems. My students were not ready for what I wanted to teach, okay? And what I found is that I was spending time in doing this preparation work with them instead of what I thought was the best solution, which was them doing the preparation work before class. I also had problems that my students weren't interested and just weren't participating. They're just sitting there and all you hear are crickets. If you've experienced that, you might be able to relate to some of the stories that I'm going to tell you in this presentation. And then I had problems that my students were not familiar with the type of technologies that I needed them to learn as actually part of my class objectives and goals. So those were really the things that led me to learn more about educational technology and ways to use technology to extend the teaching and learning time. So what kind of technology do we have available to us? I've listed some just broad categories here, so I just want to talk about those for a second. So some of the types of technology that you could use in your classroom include social media, tools for audio and visual communication, discussion and chat type tools, demonstration and presentation type tools, and then networking and communication type tools. And what I really want to talk about is to connect that slide that we saw a minute ago about what students say engage them and ways that technology can help do that. So here are what I think are the top ways that technology can help. They can help you engaging your students because technology can allow you to have worldwide connections between your students and people all over the world. Technology can also help you with your student engagement because it will allow you and your students to participate, collaborate in real time about current events, collecting data, asking questions. And one of my favorite ways to use technology is that it allows me to record a demonstration or information one time and then provide it to my students on an as needed basis and in a way that they can review it anytime they need it. It's like help or information on demand. To me, these are some of the primary ways that technology can help. So, as I mentioned from our agenda slide a little bit ago, I'm going to talk about 4 specific tools. And the first one that I want to talk about is Twitter. So Twitter is one of the social media tools, and it's probably one of the most popular and thankfully for us, one of the easiest to use. So it's free. All you need is a username and password, which you can set up easily. And what it allows you to do is to communicate to anyone on Twitter what you're doing or give information. And the interesting thing about Twitter is that you have to do it with a particular set of constraints, and that is 140 characters or less. Now, the nice thing is you can get around this very limiting space issue, because it does support links and images. So you can tweet, which is what it's called, post a really short message, but include a link that has much more information and data. The thing that I really like for Twitter is using it as a collaboration tool with my class, with my students, and also with people all over the world. And the way that you do that is with something called a hashtag. So it's what we used to in the old days call the pound sign, but now it's the hashtag, and you can create a hashtag for anything that you want. And of course, there are a lot that already exist, which is one of the other wonderful features about Twitter, in that you can search for either a hashtag or a particular item or area of interest and see what all the tweets have been about for that topic. I love Twitter for things having to do with current events. There's a new feature that was recently added to one of the updates, particularly if you're using Twitter on your smartphone, which is to see what's trending. So it kind of just gives you a wonderful overview of what people in the world are talking about right now. So, for example, just yesterday, what was trending was the World Series. So how can you use Twitter? Okay, here are a couple of things that I have done with my classes with great success. One is I ask them to create a Twitter handle of a historical mathematician. So, for example, Euclid. And then they had an assignment where they had to tweet a series of posts as if they really were Euclid. In other words, they had to tweet like a mathematician. And I got some of the most interesting information from my students, and every one of them talked about how it really made them think about the content and the people in an entirely different way when they took on these roles. I have a few more ideas about what you can do here on this slide. So the next tool that I want to talk about is VoiceThread. So this is a collaborative communication tool, and what I like about it is that it lets participants respond in all different ways. So they can type their answer, they can record their answer, they can use video, and I like to use it as a platform for interactive group type assignments. So I'll give you one example. I use this in a geometry and measurement class for pre-service teachers, and what I did is I uploaded a little presentation, a series of images and a PDF file and a couple of things like that, and had my students click through kind of like as if it were a PowerPoint, in the sense that each item is on a different slide or image on the VoiceThread. And then I gave them an assignment where I asked them to respond to different prompts and gave them a grading rubric. And it was one of the items that my students reported as being their favorite thing, and something that they were completely sure they would use in their own classrooms once they had students of their own. This is an example of what one looks like. Now, this isn't my VoiceThread, it's just one that I participated in, and as you can tell, it's a little image and video clip of this person's trip to Malawi, and it's got some comment you'll see from this screenshot here. All of the people that are all along both sides are people who have participated in this voice thread. The ones who have images next to them are people who, when they created their voice thread account, included an avatar or a picture, and the others are ones who just picked one of the objects. They have a lot of like Monopoly pieces, images that you can use if you don't want to upload a picture of yourself. And the way it works is it's kind of like playing a YouTube video, in that you see the play and pause buttons down at the bottom of the screen. So you can play the voice thread and get to see or hear or read all of the people's responses to the different items in the voice thread. You can pause it at any time, and of course you can respond to anybody else's comments or to the voice thread in general. So I've used this a lot in especially my pre-service teacher classes, but I've used them in services too, to allow teachers from different schools to be able to collaborate and communicate on, say, a project or an idea that they were thinking about doing maybe across the district. So the next tool that I want to talk about is Poll Everywhere. So this piece of technology is sort of what I think of as like a no-cost version of clickers. So maybe you've seen those really amazing but also expensive devices that let students vote or respond to multiple choice questions, or even sometimes short answer questions, and then the teacher can see the responses up on the screen up at the front of the room. So Poll Everywhere is an open source version of that. And the thing I love about it is that it allows you to collect this data, whatever form it is, whether it's assessment questions or just information, with all different types of devices. So the students can use their cell phones, they can use their tablet, they can use the laptop, a desktop, and I love it to increase student participation, particularly when I have to go through a lecture. So it kind of looks like this. And actually, this is one that you can participate in. Since this is a virtual presentation, I won't be able to show you as the votes come in, but if you create a Poll Everywhere yourself, a poll, and try it, you'll see how this works. You're given the code like this that you can embed in a PowerPoint or put on your website or just show up on the computer screen in front of your class. And it works like this. So this is what's demonstrated, what's given to the student. So here's the question from what you've seen so far. Do you think technology can help you engage your students? So I just put two different options for you to respond. One is using your cell phone and one is tweeting, okay? So if you're using your cell phone, here's what you'll do. You will text the code shown below for, like, let's say you want to say yes. So the code that you'll be texting in the message part of your text message is 998920, because that's the code that corresponds to yes, okay? And where you would send that to is 37607. So as if you were putting in somebody's phone number, you would put in the 37607, text that code that corresponds to yes or no or haven't decided yet, and this poll will automatically update as people respond. Now, of course, this is recorded and nobody's responding right now, so it's not going to change while you're watching this video, but in real life, when you use it with your class, that's how it works. If you wanted to tweet your answer, you would go to @poll and you would just put the code. So the 998920, just as an example, would be an answer of yes to this specific poll from what you've seen so far do you think technology can help you engage your students? Now, you notice, am just doing like a multiple choice, right? Yes, no, or haven't decided yet. Those are not your only options. You can use short answer, free answer, like you can have students type in their responses and it'll go to like the equivalent of an Excel file. And all different ways that you can collect data. I really love to use this, like I said, when I have to go through some lecture material and I want the students to really stay engaged and sort of stay with me. It's a lovely way to do just a quick spot check on whether your students are with you the whole time. Okay, so the last tool that I want to talk about is Screencast-O-Matic. So this is a screencasting tool, and just in case that's not a term you're familiar with, it just means it lets you record your computer screen, whatever's going on your computer screen, and your voice all at the same time in what appears to be like a YouTube video, but it's called a screencast because it's not really a video from your webcam, it's from your screen, okay? And I like to use it as a demonstration tool. Specifically, I like to use it when I'm trying to teach something to my class about some piece of technology or maybe the learning management system, like Blackboard or Canvas or Moodle, whichever one I'm using for that particular class. And I use it, like I do really all of these tools, to extend the teaching and learning time. In other words, I'm putting out of the classroom these items for the students to learn. So I'm saving that face-to-face classroom time for the really, really good stuff. So let me just give you an example of what I mean by that. This is a screencast that I created using the TI emulator, the TI Graphing Calculator emulator software. So here was my problem. Remember back many slides ago, I told you how I got into educational technology to begin with, and it was always to try to solve a problem. So in this case, the problem that I was trying to solve was this. In my probability and statistics classes, I would often want to use some real-life data and have my students enter that data into some lists, create a scatter plot, and then do a regression equation, a line or curve of best fit, in order that we could do some modeling. So for example, I might give them the 200 meter times for the last 10 Olympics and ask them to find a mathematical model that would help us predict what we think the record's going to be for the 200 meter in this upcoming Olympic match. So here's what happened though in class. This is where the problem came in. I would have, let's say, an hour and 20 minutes or a 50-minute class or maybe even a 2-hour class. And what I would end up doing is spending at least 60 to 75% of that class time just getting the students to get the stuff into their calculator, get the scatter plot, get the windows set correctly, go through the steps to create the regression equation. And we never got to the good stuff. You know what I mean? We never got to the part where we were using the mathematical model to make the prediction. So we never got the payoff. So what I started doing was using Screencast-O-Matic, and instead of doing the demonstration in class, which is what I had been doing, okay class, go to list, go to L1, put in this data, go to L2, put in this data, go to stat plot, go to plot 1, all of those things like you do when you're teaching. Instead of doing that in class, I did it as a screencast. And then I just posted the link to the LMS and told the students, go here, watch this, follow the steps. And what was great, and the students loved it, unlike in real life, they could pause virtual me, the demonstration as I was going through the calculator. If they got lost, if their screen didn't look like mine, if they didn't hear, oh wait, do I go to stat or do I go to stat plot? They could pause and rewind the screencast and do that as many times as they needed to until they had their calculators completely and perfectly set up ready to walk into class, the next day and pick up with the actual good stuff. So I was able to start the beginning of class by, okay, guys, bring up your regression equations and let's do some what if scenarios. What do we think for the next Olympic? What will this model work for Olympics, that happen in 40 years? Those kinds of things where you really get to talk about the pros and cons of mathematical modeling and why something like just the correlation coefficient might not be enough to tell you whether it's really a good model or not. So I really love Screencast-O-Matic for that. Now, I use it a lot with the graphing calculator, but I've also done screencasts for showing my students how to post things like on a discussion board in the LMS. I've used it to show them how to, use a tech tool like Voki or Vidler or Screencast-O-Matic, And the nice thing is it comes out as a URL, which you can just post directly, or you can upload to YouTube if you wanted it to be on a particular YouTube channel. There's just lots of different options for it. So that's the last tool that I wanted to talk about in this presentation. As you can tell, we're, like 25 minutes in, and I've only talked about 4 tools. So let me close with just a couple of final tips. So the first thing is, don't try to do it all. There is so much really amazing educational technology out there, and it's easy to get overwhelmed. So choose something wisely. Find a problem that you have to solve and pick a piece of educational technology that you think might help solve that problem and try it out. Just do that one thing that semester. And then add on it, tweak it, and you'll soon find that you have a nice collection of EdTech tools that will help make your job easier, help engage your students, and help extend the teaching and learning time. The other tip that I'll give you is definitely do some test runs. Make sure that what you're doing works for the Mac, or that it works on a smartphone, or that it's not just available on the iPad only, or whatever. Do some compatibility testing before you implement it all the way. The other thing is, try to be flexible and be easy, because things will go wrong. It's not going to go great the first time you try it, and try to laugh through it. And more than that, try to let your students take the lead. Say to them, hey guys, this didn't work. Do you have an idea why? Lots of times they have some really great information for you. So don't be afraid to be the learner, and do a little role switch there. The last couple of things I'll leave you are some useful links. So since this is a virtual recording, you can pause this and write these down. I have a lot of information for you on a Dropbox folder that you can get access to. I've given you my company website again, just because that's an easy way to get a hold of me. And I have a link to an approach training workshop that I've done, since part of what I offer are professional development, webinars, workshops, training sessions, virtual tutoring sessions via Skype or Second Life, those kinds of things. And last but not least, I will give you my contact information. You can reach me at drpurdue@rimway.com. You can Skype me at Diana Purdue. My Twitter handle is @RimwayLLC. And just because you have been such a wonderful virtual audience, I'm going to leave you a little bit of bonus technology listing. So 4 things: QR codes, giving you my favorite one, which is qrcode.kawa.com. I'm giving you a link for Remind 101, which is a really cool way that you can text message your students and not have to worry about privacy issues about them having your personal cell phone number, if that's not something you want to do. Desmos, which is my favorite online graphing calculator, completely free. All of these are free. They're open source tools. And last but not least, LiveBinder, which is a virtual portfolio type of site. There's one more QR code for you. And I really hope that more than anything, a few things that I've said here have caught your interest and that you will try some educational technology to engage your students and increase their content knowledge. Thank you so much.